Today we're going to talk about the five good emperors. This was a title given to them by a historian later, well after their deaths. As we talk about the five good emperors, I want you to think about our essential question. How did the reforms of the five good emperors help save the early Roman Empire? But before we learn about our first emperor, Nerva, I want you to ask yourself, if you could make the world a better place, if you had the ability to change anything about or in the world, what would you choose to change? And what would you say then are the most important issues for a leader to address first? If, say, our president was given a long list of issues in the United States that needed fixed, which issues do you think, or maybe hope, he would address first? Money issues? Like if a state needed money to fix roads or build roads? Or what if Pennsylvania needed more money to pay for salt and people to plow snow after a snowstorm? Or maybe social issues, the issues that the people are having, such as racial discrimination and even racial violence, which is when someone is attacked or even murdered for their skin color. What about school violence? Sadly, we've seen a large number of school and other public shootings recently. With a lot of issues to deal with, which ones do you think our president should try to fix first? Rome faced a similar situation where a lot of things were going very wrong very fast. Thanks to previous leaders who spent more time and more money having fun rather than leading the empire and addressing issues, like Caligula with his fancy cruise boats and Nero with his golden palace, there were a lot of problems after their deaths. However, maybe lucky for Rome, a string of 5 emperors followed shortly after Nero, who tried to fix a lot of the problems like Caligula and Nero started. The first on that list is Nerva. Nerva actually followed another emperor who was considered to be a very bad emperor, Domitian. Domitian was malicious and cruel, though apparently pretty clever. He made some good decisions regarding the military and foreign policy, though his taste for cruelty made him a hated figure in Rome. Now, I know the first thing you're wondering is why the one statue, right here, is broken and has no nose. Well, Domitian was hated by many, and after his death, many Roman citizens decided to destroy whatever images of him they could, statues, paintings, and even coins. This was a common practice referred to as condemning, which Caligula and Nero underwent. That's why Caligula's boats were destroyed, that we talked about in class, and why the golden palace that Nero built for himself was turned to rubble. Why was Domitian so hated? As you know, emperors were believed to be living gods. Caligula and Nero decided that meant they deserved to be pampered and treated themselves to extravagant and expensive leisure. Think about those boats and palaces. Domitian was very much the same. He actually demanded that anyone addressing him call him master and god. He wore a golden crown. You can sort of see it here on this statue. And he forced judges to wear the same crown. It actually had pictures of gods and himself on it as well. He also executed and exiled anyone who criticized him. To make matters worse, Domitian would confiscate the property and wealth of the person whom he exiled or had killed. He called it a donation to the state. Domitian spent a lot of money really fast, and it's actually theorized the only thing that kept Rome from going bankrupt was how fast and how often he killed people and took their fortunes. Apparently, the dead people's fortunes kept the government funded. Eventually, Domitian, though, was murdered by his Praetorian Guard. Even his wife hated him so much that she even helped in the assassination. Back to Nerva. Nerva had actually been co-consul with Domitian. After Domitian's death, some criticized the new emperor, wondering if Nerva wouldn't follow similar policies to Domitian. To their surprise, however, Nerva restored peace in Rome, and later would be hailed as the first of the 5 good emperors, as we already kind of talked about. Nerva was 65 when he became emperor. That's really old for ancient Rome. As such, he was only emperor for 2 years before he died of old age. However, in those 2 years, Nerva started carving out, you could call it a successful path of reform. First, Nerva decided that the biggest issue he had to work on was restoring the relationship between the emperor and the Senate, to basically unify Rome again. As such, he publicly swore that no more senators or Roman citizens would be executed or exiled as Domitian had done. He even returned all the property Domitian had confiscated to the families who owned them, or to any surviving children if the head of the household had been executed. Nerva also traveled a lot. Under Domitian, the people had grown upset. Particularly areas of Gaul and modern-day Germany had even tried to revolt. Nerva traveled through the Roman Empire so he could see firsthand where the issues were and how he could try to resolve them. He gave small plots of land to the poorest of the poor to help starving peasants. He even built roads for travel for merchants and peasants, and expanded the aqueduct system beyond the immediate area outside of Rome so more people could have access to water. And even after seeing how strained the Roman government's money was, Nerva pushed through some financial reforms. He ended unnecessary festivals, ones that were for unnecessary religious purposes, gladiatorial games, and a lot of chariot races. But perhaps the most notable reform of Nerva was his change to succession. Previously, there had been a stress on heredity or blood relation. Only a blood relative of the previous emperor, or whatever man had the closest relationship to the previous emperor, could even hope to be the next one. Nerva actually chose his successor, a man named Trajan. Trajan was not related to Nerva by blood, but Nerva believed that by choosing someone who was a good candidate, who showed good traits of leadership, that Rome might be spared from the future any more cruel or malicious tyrannical emperors who didn't care about the welfare of the Roman state. This new process of selecting a successor is why the 5 good emperors were so. They all chose the next emperor who would come after them based on who had the characteristics of a good leader. It was no longer just about family ties. We'll be talking about Trajan next.